Hello, everybody. Welcome to 3-Point Perspective, the podcast about illustration, how to do it, how to make a living at it, how to make an impact in the world with your art. I'm Jake Parker.
I'm Lee White.
And Will Terry could not join us today. He is on assignment. However, we have Karen Schipper in the house, and we are learning all about greeting cards, how to do wholesale, how she went from being a graphic designer to being an art director to being a full-time greeting card, like running her own business, selling greeting cards. This is a great episode. She actually reached out to us saying, hey, I've got, something I'd really like to share with your audience because I think a lot of people would like it based on the questions we've been getting. And this was a phenomenal interview. What'd you think, Lee?
Yeah, she's a total pro and she's doing it on her own, kind of like what we've been saying as a guard against sort of AI and creating your own path is That's exactly what she did. She saw a market and she matched the market. That's the kind of the most important thing. And she built her own brand.
Yeah. One of the big worries that a lot of artists have these days, like you were saying with AI, is like, well, publishers and all these like smaller jobs are going to go away because people who would have normally hired an artist are just going to go make something with AI. I don't know. I know that has been happening in places. I don't know how at scale that's going to get, because essentially Karen's clients or the people who are buying her cards specifically want a design by her, from her, with her particular personality. And so she sort of AI proofed herself essentially. Which I think is fascinating. You're going to learn a few things from this interview. Like she tells you how she like set up her wholesale business and sort of the mechanics of it. But one of the big takeaways I got from it was if she didn't know how to do something, she just went out and learned it. Like she found a course to teach her how to do it, or she found a mentor to show her how to do it. And she was willing to maybe fail a little bit or to get in a scary place where she didn't know if something was going to work or not, exist in there, see whether it did work, and then move forward. And I think that those right there are like the two main traits for being successful. A successful artist is the ability to essentially say, I don't know how to do this. I'm going to go figure it out, and to get out of your comfort zone. Did you have any other takeaways?
I was going to add one more takeaway from that, is that she did those two things that you're saying, but then the third ingredient is she leaned into who she is. And what I mean by that is what she's interested in, what her previous experience already is, where she's from, all that stuff accumulates to being her sort of ingredients for success. And I think it's a really smart thing for everyone to do that and to not say, oh, I wish I was from this other place. I wish I had this other background. Everybody's got their own unique story. And that's kind of what my takeaway from her was, is she built her story and she wants you to go build yours. She's very forthcoming with the information. Matter of fact, while we were on the podcast, I signed up for a couple of things she told us about.
Nice.
So I was like entering my email and entering the security code that they sent and stuff.
Awesome.
So she's very forthcoming with and generous with the information, which I appreciate.
Yeah, me too. Let's get right into it. All right. So Karen, thanks for coming. Thanks for joining us. You have on KarenSchipper.com essentially it's more of a shop type website than it is a portfolio site. And I want to know why you went that route, why you have sort of a shop front for your illustration business, instead of just having a straight up portfolio site.
Yeah, well, I actually did have a portfolio site for the longest time. I was a graphic design portfolio and then an illustration portfolio. And then maybe like 3 years ago, I was like, you know what? I just need to eliminate all illustration portfolio. I still have like a backlinked one. But the main idea is when you start making work for yourself, when you start making products, you get addicted to it. And it's so hard to design for someone else, I feel like. And so I feel like one of the big things was realizing that like I found so much joy and passion just like continue to make work that spoke to me. But then when it spoke to me, it also spoke to other people, and people wanted it, you know, like the more kind of like, the more heart I could put into it, the more people resonated with it. And so, not that I'm saying that like when I do take on client work for illustration, you know, like my freelance stuff, which I still do a little bit of it, I don't put my heart into it. It's just like, you know how it is. Like
Well, when
sometimes,
there's too many, you're saying there's too many cooks in the kitchen,
yeah.
so to speak. It gets diluted in some way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so basically I decided that I've always been kind of a yes person. And as I got older and had more on my plate, I realized the more I said yes to, that means that means saying no to other things. So what do I want to say yes to and commit to? And that was creating my own products and building that brand. And not taking on more freelance work.
For the people listening, let's talk about your brand. What is your brand? What would you say is your specialty? What do you sell the most of? What's your gig?
I sell illustrated greeting cards and stationery and paper goods. I mainly do wholesale, but then my goal with my cards is to help connect people, illustrated by a human for humans to connect with humans. And it's
I like that nowadays we have to distinguish human.
yeah. But I think, yeah, like it's like what I could just like, you know, I could just pull off artwork anywhere, or like I could just illustrate like I don't know, like pop stars or something like that, or like but then like everything really is so like personal. I think like I illustrate just because I love like it's a card that I want to tell my husband Ben, or like that I love him, or my best friend, they love like sunflowers, and I was like, this is a birthday card specifically for this friend. So it's my style is just in general very happy, whimsical, and yeah.
I just realized looking at your site that you're my competition. I can't talk to you anymore today.
Well, this is the reason why I wanted to talk to y'all, because I was like, Lee, you're getting into greeting cards. I am so excited for you. I'm so excited for you. You need to get into wholesale, and that's kind of like
you gotta teach me, because like I've got enough product, but I'm just dipping my toes in it. It looks like you're deep into it. You got all these different cards and stuff like that. How much of your business is to direct to customers, and how much is wholesale? And how did you go about getting wholesale?
Yeah. So I just broke down like my percentages in my revenue from last year, and it's 70% wholesale and only 2% D2C online shop.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And then 11 to 15% market. And then the other is custom illustrations or freelance illustration. Yeah.
When you just to break that down, when you say market, what does that mean?
Oh, sorry, like in-person markets, like craft fairs or art shows. Yeah.
All right. So if you make $100, $70 came from wholesale, $10 came from a marketplace sale, and $2 came from freelance work or your shop, from your online shop.
Yeah, from my online shop.
And then the rest is freelance.
And the rest is freelance.
Okay. Yeah. So how'd you get there?
I got here because so 2019 is when I first dipped my toes into creating illustrations for greeting cards. Oh gosh. Okay.
That's pretty recent, actually. I mean, like considering how much success, sounds like you got immediate success.
Well, I took a pause actually after doing my first kind of line. So there's a market, a craft show, like a really big craft show in Greenville, South Carolina, where I'm based. It's called Indie Craft Parade. And I think any maker should apply for this.
I'm writing this down. Wait, what was it called? It was called
Indie Craft Parade. And it's ran by Makers Collective. They're the best art show hands down for like makers, like small makers.
Okay.
And I love, we've met so many people through that thing. That also says this is one of the best organized, highest revenue kind of like art fairs. And I loved illustration. So I was just like, and I love greeting cards. So I was like, let's just try making it like a small line, kind of like a most viable like product, right?
Yeah.
Tested it out. People liked it. And then I was pregnant with my firstborn, my son, who's now 3.5, and was like, well, I don't think I can do, my own thing. And I went back to graphic design. I was an art director and a brand designer for basically 10 years since graduation.
Well, that helps in terms of understanding what you're going to do, I would think. If there's a brand building, you have you had a decade of experience. So
yeah. And I can go back into the history a little bit more, but just to go into the wholesale part. So I had my son and then COVID hit. So everything basically took a pause. I just kind of do like freelance, design work. I worked for an agency. And then in 2021, I was like, okay, I want to stay home with my son, basically, like eventually. The only way to basically make enough money for my family is financially, was to either continue to climb the career ladder or to build my own business. If I continue to climb the career ladder, that means pulling time away from my family because that means more hours in the office, or I need to just invest in my own work. And so kind of took one class on like pattern making and licensing. And it was a viable, that was a viable like kind of path to go, but I knew it was going to be a long road. Mm-hmm. And then someone told me through Indie Craft, I'd continue to do it like, just doing like markets, like a very slim line, maybe like 20 designs. And she was like, you need to check out this program called Paper Camp. And she is basically a guru on wholesale, especially any product-based business wholesale, but really in greeting cards. Took that class, and that changed my career in 2022. And so I started going deep dive into wholesale and building out my line. And that's kind of how I started. So almost 2 years ago now, not quite. I went from like 3 wholesale accounts that were all local, and now I'm almost in 200 stores. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Any stores we would know? Name brand, or is it local stores?
There is a name brand, which will put me at like 500 stores probably by end of the year, but I can't quite tell you all that yet.
Oh, the NDA statement.
Yeah, which I'm really excited about. Yeah. But a lot of local, like my bread and butter is kind of my mom and pop shops, who I love. Like I love the relationship with the stockist and with the buyer. Mm-hmm. And like if I do well and create art that their customer loves, then their shop does well. And in the small business economy, it's hard. But yeah, it's like a win-win situation, and we both do well.
So that's actually. Go ahead.
One more thing. So why I decided to go wholesale was because I didn't like people liked my products, but I did not want to be on Instagram or social media very much, especially after having a son. 2020, it was chaos on social media. Even now, Instagram algorithm keeps changing. And so I was like, okay, like if I can't rely on this place, like how can I sell more? And so after taking that wholesale class, it was like, okay, like people are making a business out of a product-based business. How can I do this as well, basically? And with wholesale, it's so nice because it's like you have a minimum order. Each minimum order from a shop is $150 for me. Mm-hmm. And so it's like they order, that's $150. So if you have more stores and they keep reordering, then it's like 150, 100, sometimes it's like 1,000, so It just the volume really helps. But you also don't get as big of a profit margin from D2C, but I don't have to spend ad money, and I don't have to count on the algorithm of Instagram.
So and it starts to become repeat business, and that's where the real profit starts to happen. My galleries are sort of that way. Is once they've ordered a bunch, I don't think a lot of people in illustration, at least when they're learning how to be a business person, think about the what's the term for it, Jake? The acquisition cost.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, to get a customer, you have to advertise. So how much does it cost to advertise to get one customer? And then if that one customer buys from you, how much do they buy and how frequently do they buy? And what I love about what you're saying is that once your acquisition cost is sort of done, you've got that shop. The continued orders really do start to pay off because you're not having to lose the revenue side of ad spend for that client. Yeah.
So one of my big questions there, and you alluded to it, is, you know, I think about wholesale marketing or the wholesale market and trying to get, you know, my products into these little shops, you know, across the country. I guess my big thing is, who actually is going into shops anymore to buy stuff? Aren't they just buying everything on Amazon? Like, isn't that a concern, or is that something that you've bumped up against seeing, you know, in this business?
Yeah. No, because I am the person who does not buy online.
Okay.
Like I just love a tangible product, but that's all basically. Yes, small business are closing all the time, I do feel like, but there's also like bookshops, you know, like there's independent bookstores. Why? I mean, I'm not everybody's, you know, like I'm not for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't be like, so I have a very specific kind of customer, you know, like, and those customers love a local shop, you know, like, and usually it's female and they love, you know, relationships. So in that sense, it's like, I'm not talking to the one who wants to go buy a $1 card at money, you know, Dollar Tree, $1.25 now, actually. But but I am like, but there are people who want to buy a Hallmark card who will spend $8, but they're like, why do I want to spend $8 on a card when I can buy something that's really, you know, like that really touches a heartstring, or that is from
more
a maker.
Personal.
Yeah. For maybe $5.50 or $6.
Well, I think, you know, it's funny that ties into the conversation that Jake, Will, and I were having last week about, you know, everybody's worried about AI and everybody's freaking out about AI. Rightly so. It's kind of a weird time. But my position is exactly what you're saying there is I think, and I would put money on it. I am putting money on it. I'm investing in it, that at a certain point, people are, and I think this is the point right now, people are sick of being at home and in front of a screen, in front of a computer, doing everything online. And I think there's going to be a premium for personal experience, in-person experience, and, you know, like you're saying, supporting creators and being at the shop, holding the card itself and buying it. And I think that, you know, it's a good point. It's not everybody who's going to do that. It's not like you're going to be in battle with somebody who is the Dollar Tree shopper and they're like, oh, I'm going to buy an $8 card. But I think people are going to venture out. And I think it's a good thing for people to kind of think about in the future, that as the robots invade, the personal experience is going to become more valuable.
Right.
And kind of going back to like the 1,000 true fans kind of thing, even though I don't know exactly how I feel about all of that. But yeah, all you need is a really basically loyal customer base, right? Like you don't need
1,000 true indie shops.
Yeah. And then you know, like you're borrowing their customers, you know, and then they, you know, but then at the same time, I'm like, yeah, like for me, as much as like I illustrate everything on the computer, but then I think through paper. And I think like there is something very like, I think Jake, you were saying like you're an analog like planner, like you, and I am too. Like, and there's something about like the like pen to paper and like the using your hands or being with the earth, you know, like that's very grounding. That like I think you can never replace that with AI. And I think people know that innately. Like people need people.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. I think too, like when you get something in the mail from somebody, like that's kind of a big deal. Even when I was, you know, 20 years ago or 30 years ago, I would get mail from friends or whatever. And I was like so excited for it because it was like this was actually touched by them. And these pen marks, you know, I could see a little bit of their fingerprint smudge on it. Like this was theirs. And this is just an extension of that. They buy a card, they either give it to them in person or they mail it to them or something. And I could definitely see the appeal to that versus getting a text that says your mother-in-law just gave you $150 from Amazon for your birthday.
Yeah.
You know, actually that's being really generous, but
yes, I will take it. I'll take it.
maybe Christmas, but you know, it's less personal than, you know, here's a $2 bill and a card from grandma, right? So
Yes.
My question is though, it's one thing to be like, yeah, I want to do a wholesale business, and it's another thing to like, how many cards should you have? Like, how often should you be updating with new cards? Run us through
what's
like
the best selling card? That's what I always want to know. It's like, if you're going to start a greeting card line, asking for a friend, what is the first card? What's the most selling card that people need and want? Is it a birthday card?
Yes.
Knew it.
Birthday cards are evergreen. There's a birthday every day.
Right.
At least, you know?
That's true. Right.
And so before my wholesale class, like I've always been into greeting cards, and I always knew, you know, like I think independent greeting card makers, like aside from like Hallmark or, you know, the big, you know, is Rifle Paper. Kind of, they were the pioneers in the illustrated greeting cards.
Yeah.
And so I've always, since the very beginning, like right as I was coming out of like high school, I guess, I noticed them and I was like, okay, like that would be really cool to do one day. And when I started in 2019, when I did that market, I took a whole bunch of like people that were my competitors, I guess, or like people I wanted to emulate. And I broke down all their card ratios. So like, you know, counted up all their whole catalog.
Wow.
And then like the percentages. But birthday cards are definitely like, most of them is like, you know, probably 50%, if not a little less or more kind of thing. And then it kind of goes down. But cards are probably most of what they sell. But then like how many to start in wholesale? I would say, well, there is a science behind it. And usually they say in greeting cards, it's around 48 designs, which is quite a bit. But at the same time, like with you all who's been illustrating for years, you have enough, you know?
I have 47 more birthday cards I need to do if 48 is the number.
Well, Lee, honestly, Lee, your tarot deck, all you got to do is take each one of those images and say happy birthday on the top of them. So it's just like, you know, it's a duck carrying a cup or whatever, and you just put a little candle in the cup.
Candle on every. Well, it's funny because the next suit I'm doing is going to consist of candles. So maybe that, I mean, that's an interesting thing, is to kind of look at your existing catalog, and go, okay, what can I do? Because like I feel like I'm a pretty creative person, but then when I start thinking of birthday cards, I'm like, all right, I got a cake, that's one, and then I'm stuck after. I don't know what to put on a birthday card besides a cake.
Yeah.
Yeah. I usually start with sayings, like things like, you know, like I'm like, oh, like I have a card that's like cat. Hope your birthday is the cat's pajamas. You know, like I love the idiom, like cat's pajamas, and I was like, what can I put that with? You know, it's like, oh, I could say, you know, hope your birthday is the cat's pajamas, and then illustrate cats in pajamas.
Right.
Perfect. So, that's such a great way to take a random sort of abstract idea, and then all of a sudden now you have this concrete thing, and it's cute, and it goes with your personal style and everything. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
So it's
I need
birthday
46
cards.
More suggestions.
Okay, no, you don't focus on birthday cards. I mean, birthday cards is great. You gotta, yeah.
Essentially, it's birthday cards. It's Christmas, Valentine's, Mother's, Father's Day, and like, what else? That's probably it, right?
Thank you, congrats, new home, love and friendship, sympathy.
All right.
Yeah.
I just spent 5 days with my mom. I got a lot of ideas for Mother's Day. I think like mean passive aggressive Mother's Day cards would be funny. Like thanks for your mean-spirited, brutal honesty,
relationship
Mom.
with his mom.
There is a market for it though. Yeah.
Thanks for the judgmental little weird comments, Mom. Loved them.
All right. So you said 48 cards?
48 SKUs.
SKUs. So you could do 24 cards and like 12 notepads and 12, 5 sticker sets or whatever, or you could break it down like that.
Yeah. The idea is so when you do wholesale, you want kind of like you have to have an opening order amount.
Mm-hmm.
And you want them to be able to have enough variety to choose from to get to that opening order. Because if you only have, like let's say 10 designs, they're not going to order all 10 designs.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just not going to speak all to them. So having a bigger variety basically allows.
So you're saying to have that variety to get to the minimum order.
Yeah.
Wait, are they establishing the minimum order or are you?
You are.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But you don't want to start too low. I would say, I am at 150. I would study what other people are doing,
mm-hmm.
and then just copy.
Right. I mean, that's the standard, right?
It's already, it's the standard. Yeah, it's the standard. There's a reason why I do it that way.
Right.
And you'll figure it out.
Is 150, that's opening order, and then is there like a reorder amount that's lower, or is it the same?
I have mine's lower. Yeah. And usually it is lower. Yeah.
So I'm an indie shop owner. I come to KarenSchipper.com. I click on you have a wholesale button on your website here. And there it kind of says your terms and your policies, your, cancellations, back orders. I love that you have all this. This is super professional. And then I can just essentially shop through your website, or do I go to like a website like Fair to order your stuff?
You can't shop through my website right now. Eventually one day the professional thing would be to have a wholesale site. I'm just not quite there yet. But I use a lot of Fair, or they can look at my catalog and just email me the order and I'll bill them when I ship it. But Fair is a big wholesale platform that a lot of people use. And it makes it really easy. Yeah. They're a great partner to be with.
Wait, what's the website for that?
Fair, Faire.
Right. But the problem with Fair, because I've been digging into this a little bit, you'd rather them order straight through you because Fair takes a percentage, right?
Yes. But if you're good about reaching out to people, I have like my retail list. So this is kind of like the hidden art of pitching in a way.
Yeah.
I think with any illustration industry, if you're doing things for yourself, you need to be pitching. And people with D2C, it's pitching on Instagram, I guess, or social media or ads. But with wholesale, it's pitching through email to retailers. So if you have shown history that you've talked to this retailer, and Fair has kind of like guidelines of like, you have had to talk to them for like, the past 3 months, emailed them at least once, then they can take the commission off. And so a lot of times, so I know like my work really fits in these kind of gift boutiques or stationery shops. Then I have an ongoing list of like, I email them every 3 months, basically, if they haven't ordered from me. And I mean, it's like hundreds or close to 1,000 maybe. Yeah. And then
your email is,
yeah.
Your email is essentially a pitch. Like, hey, check out my catalog. Let me know if I'm right for your store. Here's how you order from me, essentially.
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
And then, so then you get a customer. How do you make sure they're a repeat customer? Is there anything you can do to do that?
How do you make sure your current customers are repeat customers?
Yeah. Your current shops, come back. Because I assume if your stuff didn't sell, it was not a good fit, they're not going to obviously reorder. And that's sort of out of your control, right?
Yes. So I think multiple ways. One is I have a monthly newsletter that I send to just my current wholesale people. And like I always add value in my newsletter. Like, hey, these are our best sellers, like they don't have a lot of time. So you're like, you want to give them what they need. Basically, these are my best sellers, or like, um, I would say like, did you know about like this kind of resource that I provide with my, if you buy with me kind of thing. Or then, and then like, sometimes I'll send out like, like nurture, like kind of like a card that say like, hey, heard it's your birthday, like, so just to kind of put yourself constantly in front of their mind. But then if your product fits with their store, usually they'll order again. Yeah. Yeah.
How often do they reorder? Is it a seasonal thing or is it a monthly thing?
Yeah. So it depends on the stores. Some people like to order once a year at like a giant order. Some people like to order, quickly, like every couple months. If they're a small store, they usually order every probably quarter, maybe. Recently, so I have these matchbook art prints that I do that are based out of cities. And I don't have a lot of cities, but recently I started like adding more cities because now that I'm full-time, I have a little more margin to create more new designs. And I did a Philadelphia one, and like that has been selling really well. And so they've been ordering every like maybe couple weeks. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. That's super cool. And then as far as like the art fairs, are those specifically to sell your cards to customers, or do you go to the shows where the shop owners are attending?
Trade shows.
Trade shows.
Yeah. I don't do that right now.
Okay.
Probably maybe like a couple more years, maybe next year. I don't know. It just feels daunting, but yeah, it's mainly market, like being in front of people.
So the big trade show for licensing and stuff is that one in New York. What's it called, Jake?
New York Now.
Yeah, Search. We should split a booth there. That's what I always recommend is people go split a booth, and that way you're not taking on the entirety of the trip and all the fees and stuff like that. But that seems like the one, like where you are, it seems like that's the logical next step. Why are you saying a few years versus now? What kind of metric are you looking at there?
Babies.
Okay, enough said.
Yeah.
No, I'm not pregnant right now, but we have a 7-month-old, and yeah, it's just a little hectic. I feel like I'm not quite.
But there are some legitimate hurdles. Like you have to have enough cards to sell at these things, right? You have to essentially be rocking and rolling already. You have to pay the fee to get into those shows, which is thousands and thousands of dollars, right?
It's a big spend. I was looking at it last year.
You have to have a booth set up. And it's not just show up and lay out a table. It's like interior design, essentially, for a booth. And then you have to have your whole wholesale, like back end side, like all figured out, so that if somebody shows up and says, oh, we really like it. If Barnes and Noble shows up and says, we really like this, we want to put these in our stores. Are you able to print 10,000 cards in 2 weeks or whatever, however long it takes, and ship them out, right?
Yeah. All of that. And New York is actually a little more complicated. So if I were to do any trade show, I would probably start with Atlanta, America's Mart. It's just they allow you to
your vibe.
Yeah. No, I do know the buyers like January. So January and July is kind of when like wholesale releases happen. So you're not constantly designing like throughout the year and releasing throughout the year. And you kind of buy, like I'm releasing Christmas and holiday stuff in July because buyers are buying ahead of time. But anyway, so yeah, I would, and that's only like 3 hours away from me. And the booth setup is a lot easier on that end. But I hear like New York now, there's a lot more regulations around that. And that kind of like, and then like parking in New York also, and like shipping everything there. I'm like, I just don't want to deal with it.
It's a big deal. I mean, it's a big hassle. That's for sure.
Yeah. But I know like one day we'll get there, but we'll think about it later. Or maybe even like choosing, like going with a rep, like they sometimes have showrooms. That's another option.
Okay. Talk about reps. What do you have a rep?
I don't.
Okay.
Um,
Can you just explain what a rep is for our listeners and what they would do,
yeah.
what they do?
So a rep is someone who likewise will take a commission, but they have a relationship with the stores already a lot of times. And sometimes you have reps that are regional, so just in like the Bay Area or New York City.
Mm-hmm.
And they go to all the shops and they have like a book that they show all your designs to them, and they'll go to them in person and pitch your things. So if they get a store for you, then you would give them, I think it's like 25% or something 15 or 25%
For
depending.
that first order, for every order?
I think it depends on which rep you're with, I think. Yeah. So
probably
right now,
I mean, I was with the licensing rep with
Yeah.
Bright, and it was definitely every order. You don't ever
Yeah.
get that client
well,
exclusively.
I'm trying to say like probably the first order is probably more, and then after the reorders, would it be like less? Like, or is it the same?
For
For
Bright,
you?
it was just the same. I don't know if
I-
other reps work differently.
Yeah.
than that.
Yeah.
That's super interesting. So I guess going from that, we've talked a lot about the startup, like you got to get your 48 SKUs. You got to have your wholesale.
I mean, okay, I would say start sooner than later though. Like if you're like, I only have like 38, like go for it. Go.
Okay. So you've got to get essentially a way for shops to know about your cards. So you could either use Fair, or I guess, can you get on Fair if you're untested, if you just have designs? Or
they do have I mean, they're pretty relaxed about who they take in now. They used to be pretty pretty guarded.
So that essentially means Fair is super crowded, right? So even if you get on it, it's not like people are just automatically gonna see you. So you've got your cards, you got your website set up, you've got your terms and conditions for wholesale. When do you make a catalog at this point too?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you have a catalog. Can you tell about that? Talk about a catalog.
I can probably show you my catalog.
Let me. I got it right here, loaded up already. I'll just share my screen.
Yeah.
Hey, while you're pulling that up, can I tell you about the worst greeting card that you can make?
Yeah.
The most ineffective. I was thinking about this last week. The most ineffective greeting card you can have, that's a good card, is "You are totality awesome for the eclipse."
Please. I never want to hear that again.
You get to use that every 30 years.
You are totally awesome. Totality.
Totality awesome.
So if you, okay, well, you can scroll through it if you want. But a catalog, I guess, is basically your portfolio. This is how you show your stockists all your work that is for sale. And on every page, you basically want to make it really easy for them to order. They know exactly what the specs are, how much it is, and what the best sellers are. And you want a SKU number, like, and the name of the card. So if they, if they order, they can just say, "Hey, I want key to my heart,"
Yeah.
Or they can say this as the SKU number too, either way. And then I organize it by category, cards, and then like the event, And
are you doing prints of this stuff too, or is it exclusively to greeting cards?
If you go down here, she's got notepads.
I do notepads. Yep.
Memo pads, gift tags, and then here's the print section, art print section. But you'll notice, like, she's not just taking a card and turning it into a print, because cards would eat the print sales, right? So you're doing something that would actually look good, like hanging up on someone's wall.
A little bit different, right?
I have had people ask, "Okay, can you make that into a print?" And sometimes I'll do it like one off, but I don't know. I feel like it cheapens it's just, I don't know. Some people are like, work smarter, not harder kind of thing. And just double up.
Is that showing the wholesale price or the
wholesale price? This is wholesale.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. So wholesale would be 50% of your retail price.
Right.
But I also have on my webpage a small business resource if anybody wanted to know a little bit more about wholesale. And there's a little, like, a 5-tip to getting started in wholesale that kind of talks about like how do you get in front of stockists? You need a catalog, like things to think through before you start wholesale, basically. So
That's super handy.
Yeah. So feel free to download that. And then you can add, I'll add more resources in the future, but right now we have to. Yeah.
I'd like to know a little bit because, Jake and I talk about productivity and scheduling and all that stuff a little bit more. I mean, you're wearing a lot of sort of business hats here, dealing with customers, dealing with clients, catalogs, doing all this stuff, and then also making the art. And then obviously you said you had, young children at home. How are you going about your day to get this stuff done?
Yeah. I feel like, well, if I could turn my computer. So I have a paper on the side of my place, and I always start with prayer because and kind of meditation, whatever you need to do, basically. I start with prayer and just thank God for what he's given me and to give me ideas. And then I have a little to-do list. And it's split up with AM and PM. So basically in the morning is when I'm most focused. And so that's my most guarded time. And so that's when I do all my creative work. And then my PM is my admin. So in my AM, I do, I put my phone on airplane mode. I don't schedule any meetings. I don't check emails. And then all of that is like, like right now I'm working on a Knoxville matchbook art print. And so it's like the first thing I need to do is I know I need to just, pull up that file and start working on it and not touch anything else. And so I keep the to-do list pretty small. And then once like after lunch, then I'll start doing like my bookkeeping, ordering cards, and then fulfilling orders. I have an intern, and my dad likes to come in too. And Ben, my husband, he also helps fulfill orders. So usually they fulfill orders for me. And I can be pretty like hands off with that. And then for reaching out to people, I used to have someone who does it. Now I kind of have taken it back to my intern has been helping me with that. And then all the other in between stuff. Basically, I think any task expands the time that if you need, right? So like if I guard my time in the morning to do creative work, and I try to draw every day, or like think about like, like brainstorm for card ideas or, sayings or research or something like that. And if I can guard my time in that way, and if that overflows into the afternoon, that's great, but then if I start with emails, that can overflow, or like bookkeeping or something, that can always expand. So that's kind of how I structure my day. Yeah.
That's and good. I gotta backtrack for 1 second. Did you say you're making a city print for Knoxville?
For Knoxville, yeah.
What is in Knoxville? How in the world did you land on that? I understand every city.
People love
New
Knoxville.
York and Chicago and LA, but I don't understand Knoxville. What's in Knoxville? How is that one?
Knoxville is because I have a craft fair next week at Knoxville. Okay. And I was like, and I have a couple stores there too. And I was like, so a lot of times I partner with my retailers. Like, I'm like, hey, I'm doing a matchbook art print. Would you be interested in sharing like your local spots, like, and then we'll sometimes partner up that way.
Okay.
And then have a kind of buy-in. Yeah. But anyway, and then also I do find myself, at least I feel like actually I have a New York matchbook, and it doesn't do very well because I think big city people just, they're not as local. Whereas like if you can get a smaller city that is really like local and they love, and it's growing, I think that usually does a little bit better.
There's a lot of small town pride or city
I tell you what,
pride.
if you put that anything with University of Tennessee in that Knoxville print, it will sell 1 million copies.
Well, I don't do universities.
You could just use the orange. I mean, the orange would be recognizable. People paint their entire cars orange.
Are you from Knoxville?
No, I'm from Nashville.
Oh, okay.
Originally. Okay. So, but I mean, people are fanatical, especially in the Southeast, about football. As you know, if you've been around South Carolina or any of those places, fanatical about football. And so if you just use that orange, I mean, people paint their cars orange. I see people in totally orange
That's
outfits,
true.
like couples wearing all orange. It's
Bummer.
crazy.
My print right now doesn't have orange on it.
You got to throw that orange in there. They'll all know, even if you don't put
you're right.
a football in.
Right.
So you talked about how you structure your day. How do you structure like your year? Because you have these, I assume you have January and July are like big deadline drops for wholesale, like adding to your catalog essentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many new things are you making every year for your shop?
So January and July is the big launch. And so I usually try to do like at least like 12 cards. And it's like, okay, I'll aim for 12. And then usually I can overshoot to like 30, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll think about if there's any new product releases, like new product categories or new notepads. So this, I just know myself, I'm a lot more creative in the spring and summer. Like in winter and holidays, I'm just dead. Like I have nothing to show. And it's pulling teeth designing anything. So like I usually have my really big launches in July. And then structuring my year, I'm just kind of learning how to do this. I'm not like great at it, I think, but knowing those two deadlines is helpful. And then like I always do indie craft. It's a juried show, so every time I'm like, hope I get in. Usually I do. And then I don't do too many markets, even though like I only keep local for the most part, mainly because of kids. And everything in between, like I know I'll usually at least take like a month to 2 to go to design and produce. But then throughout the year, I'm also like, I'll take in like like I have like a commission that I'll open up or right now I'm doing some originals for a shop or gallery near me. And so I know.
Where are you based out of again?
Greenville, South Carolina.
So you are in Greenville. Okay. I knew you did that show, but I didn't know if you were actually local to that city.
It's an amazing city.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool. So okay, so you're staying busy. You got the orders coming in. What's like the goal with this? Do you want to stay, do you want to hit 1,000 shops at some point, or are you happy at like we're just cruising along here at 400 or 500 or 200 to 500?
Yeah, like do you want to be the next Rifle?
Yeah. Paper
company.
Man, that's a hard question. I don't think I want to be the next Rifle. I think I don't know. I feel like I've been asking myself a lot that question the past, 6 months. And I don't want it to just be a number as well, because I'm like, you always will want to hit the next number. But I do think it's the amount of, there's a few things that I know I want for sure is to be able to provide for for my family and to be continue able to do what I do. But then and I think the next thing would probably be like the impact of like, how can I serve the community around me, like giving back or something like that. And giving back to like, having a few employees and being able to like help them in their career to like, you can do a business in illustration too, and let me show you the ropes. And if you don't, that's fine too. I would like to just invest in you and, I don't know. I love working with like fresh college grads because I feel like they're just figuring things out, and that's.
Are you teaching at a school? I mean, it sounds like you're working with how are you working with that group?
Just interns and like anybody who comes to me, I'm always like, I'm just an open book. If you ask me, if you want to email me, if you take the time to email me, I will email you back within 3 months.
You should not have said that. You're going to get inundated with people. Do you want to do any bigger illustration? This is something that I think Will, Jake, and I struggle with, is like doing something like that's quick hit, like licensing, where you can make a singular image and sell it. I love the appeal of that my images don't have to be totally connected. and you can mass produce a lot of stuff. But then I want to make a more complete story, like a children's book, for example, or some kind of
Yes.
narrative based thing. Do you have that drive too? I
I
didn't
have both.
go. Okay, nice. Are you
Yeah.
doing books? I guess is my question.
I would love to write my own and illustrate my own book. So the Children's Book Pro has always been really tempting. It just hasn't been the right season yet. But
Oh,
yeah,
you would
so
be
like
all over that because you already know how to do everything. So it would just be like a couple little hits of information, be like, all right.
I think it's the writing. The writing is so hard. Like you think it's so easy to write a kid's book. It's so hard.
I always say that I understand the happily ever after ending now, which I used to think was such a cop out. It is incredibly hard to end a story in a satisfying way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it
You
really
got to
is.
start with the ending.
Yeah, exactly. I think
Figure
that's
out an
true.
ending first and then work your way to it.
Okay, that's a good tip. So yeah, licensing I think would be my next thing because all my things I could just pull, things
Mhm.
out from, like they're all digital files. So it's like just pulling it and making it into a pattern and then creating some more, like already have the card. So like it's
Yeah.
easy. I feel like that would be easy win. I licensed some of my cards already, and that's the most passive, like no revenue ceiling kind of like,
Mm.
so it just makes sense to grow that. And to see your products on shop, on
Yeah.
things that you would not want to produce yourself and manufacture yourself because manufacturing is tough. And yeah, inventory is also a whole other mess.
Are you creating your work mainly digital, or I see some almost like watercolor effects? Is that all digital, or are you kind of hybrid?
I do all digital. Yeah.
Oh wow, okay.
So
Is it iPad or Photoshop?
I do iPad Photoshop. I use an app. So I use an app called AstroPad, and I think no one uses it anymore.
I use it.
Oh, do you? Okay,
I do. I have it, and I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I felt like Procreate was not there yet, so I was like, I already know once it got developed, like I was like, I already have my style down with my Photoshop brushes,
Mhm.
and so I was like, there's no point in changing it, which means I always have to carry my laptop and my iPad.
For those of you guys who don't know, AstroPad is a sort of a link between your iPad and your laptop, and it essentially makes your iPad into kind of a virtual Cintiq in a way.
Mhm.
And it's great. There's a little bit of lag sometimes. It's connected via Wi-Fi or whatever.
Bluetooth probably.
Yeah, I think you can direct hook it as well.
I use a dongle.
Okay. But it connects it and it works. I did it for the exact same reason, is that I was traveling and I needed my real setup, not a kind of abbreviated setup with Procreate or something like that.
Yeah.
And so AstroPad gives you the sort of the best of both worlds. So I use it. I like it.
Are you mentioned you've got your essentially is your house your warehouse for all your cards right now? How do you organize that?
Well, let's see if I can do this.
Are you in the garage right now or the basement?
Oh my goodness. She's showing us her organization.
Yeah, so I work it's a split level house. So the bottom level is Ben has an office next door and it's a really small place, and then I have this entire room, which is just
Let me add right there, because I don't know if we mentioned this yet, but Karen is Ben Schipper's wife, who we had on the podcast, I don't know, 50 episodes ago or last year around this time. So if you're, she just mentioned him. He's a graphic novel artist who recently came out with a book called Joe Death, which is super cool, super stylistic, and love his work. So, okay. So you've got half your space is like essentially your shipping zone. Yeah. You're like sending that out. At what point does it make sense to like move this operation out of the home? Is it, when it's 500 stores, and you're having to ship twice as much now, or do you think you can hang on to this?
I feel like I could hang on to this for a couple more years. I don't know. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. Okay. Right now, I don't have enough space already. Like I'm doubling cards in like the same box. So it makes inventory a little messy, but those are the seasonal ones, so it doesn't.
Yeah.
I feel like it works out fine.
And if you're just listening, you don't see this on YouTube. Half of her room in this room space is like shipping and storage, I guess.
Yeah.
Inventory. And there's a wall of like little boxes where all the cards are being stored in, and they're like doubled up, which is super cool. So you got that going on. I guess, we're coming close to our, the time. We appreciate you like carving out your morning hours, this precious time for us. We really appreciate it. But is there anything you wanted to add that like we didn't ask, or you wanted to like mention or bring up that you feel like people need to know?
Oh, well, this might be going to a rabbit hole, but I would say like, so I'm from Hong Kong. Grew up there, and then I went to school for graphic design, having no idea how to even turn on a MacBook. Like I had to ask the person next to me, like, where's the button for this thing? But I loved art. But I've always loved illustration. I just didn't know that could be a viable career, even though I married an illustrator. I was just like, I can't see myself doing a picture book, or be a picture book illustrator, and then there was money in graphic design, but then started doing that and realized that I was so much more illustrative. And then I moved to New York City in 2017 to become a senior brand designer for a lot of food and bev restaurants in New York. And that's when one of my coworkers was like, I think you're more of an illustrator than a graphic designer. And I started meeting a lot of illustrators in New York City. And then we moved back to Greenville because we were all, both Ben and I were freelancing, and he had a book deal. And we were like, why are we paying New York rent for, when we're just working from home?
In this tiny little apartment.
But then having that permission to just do what I love was so helpful. Like I didn't need, I don't know why I needed that permission. Like Ben was always like, Karen, like you can do it. Like just go for it. And I would say like, there is a and this still took me another 5-6 years to get to where I am, now, to like fully commit to doing wholesale on my product-based business. But like, I think like, if you love what you do, like continue doing what you are doing. Like I would just illustrate all the time and just post that on social media. And I would look at, like, I'm super inspired by picture books, like the old ones, like Frog and Toad and all of that. And I feel like that's why, like, I love your all's podcast and like all the advice that you give on like, you're not on this road yourself, by yourself. Like there is masters that come before you, and just follow their lead kind of thing. And then constantly compare yourself, like, hey, how's my work comparing to that people? And then like nothing's wasted, because then like all my, like even though I'm like, oh, I wish I started this earlier and committed to this earlier, like I'm like, as a graphic designer, it has helped me so much to create my brand now. And my type, like how I use type is pretty distinct, I feel like, compared to some other people. And I think it all comes from that background. And my growing up years in Hong Kong, like, allowed me to love colors, because we watch so much Japanese cartoons and it's all just colors,
Yeah.
And so I'm just I guess like my closing word is basically like, just like an encouragement, like to just keep at it, and like to like continue to like push yourself to feel like an artist in a way. But
and also, like, you're basically saying, lean into really who you are, like wherever you grew up, that's going to be your thing, and wherever your interests are, that's going to be your thing, and it kind of creates who you are. So that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's totality awesome.
Jeez.
See, I could have given her the card right
I think
there.
too, like looking at your progression as an artist too, it's like you're you're taking bold steps to actually make something that like kind of take control of your career path. Whereas I think a lot of times people are passively like going through like, and I know with artists, and I've definitely done this myself, is it's something I like to do. It's something that's fun to do. So I'm just going to follow wherever it's fun and likable and not where it's hard and difficult.
Yeah.
You know, that's why some artists just are always doing like one style of character head, and that's all they fill their sketchbooks with because it's fun and easy.
Yeah.
Whereas the growth comes where it's like a little bit painful and a little bit hard and a little bit you're unsure of yourself. And it seems like you're willing to constantly like go into that zone and see, you know, what's there for you there.
I think like also committing to an industry really does help, because you're like, okay, let's say I want to get into greeting cards. Like I can't just draw heads for all my birthday cards, you know, like, like how, like, okay, so I am, like how, or having kind of a scaffolding basically of like, this is what I need. Like if I want to get into this, what do I need to do to get to be the man, you know, like to, I mean, like I would say, even though, you know, my growth has been pretty fast, you know, like from just how fast I've grown in wholesale. But then like, I do think it's because like, not to be braggy, but like you do have to have good work, you know, like it's like you do have to like,
your work is legitimate. Like it's a style that is all its own, but also very contemporary to like, it doesn't stand out so much that people are like, why would I hang that on my wall? You know, but like, there's a good color palette, there's good composition, there's good design, there's good, you know, graphic design is well done. So I think you're right. Like you need to have a level of competency in image making on one side, but then you also need to have like this level of get stuff done. Like, let's make an actual thing.
And I think like being willing to take like criticism and like being honest with yourself too. Like you're like, I'm looking at, you know, like, you know, this artist and this artist. I'm like, you're like, how do I get here? You know, like, and, you know, I've asked Ben, I'm like, hey, what do you think of this card? And it's like, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, like, I'm not asking you any questions anymore. And then you think about, you know, you let it sit for a day and you're like, okay, like, yeah, he was right, you know?
Yeah.
But like, I've had so many designs where it's all in an archive folder where it's just like I like made, you know, I spent like three days on it and you're like, okay, it's just not there, you know, but you have to say like, okay, this is just, you can revisit it later, 5 years from now.
Yeah. And you can always repurpose. I mean, occasionally it'll be like that. You tuck it away and then there'll be the perfect thing for it. And you're like, oh, you may have to rebuild it in a different way, but I do that all the time. It's amazing how often that actually happens. But I do want to highlight kind of what you're talking about there is Jake, Will, and I were talking with our self-publishing pro people about that issue that, you know, we're going over all these techniques for getting your work made and how to advertising and how to build up your followers, like all the stuff. And we're like, all that assumes that your product is really good. Like that is your starting point, a really good product, because all the marketing, all the followers, all the stuff doesn't matter if that base product isn't good. So you always got to kind of check.
You have to, you know, if you're the less good your product is, the more good your marketing has to be.
That's a clumsy quote, but I really like it.
It's like, both is going to take a lot of time, you know, like both is going to take a lot of time. So why not spend more time doing what you love doing, which is, for me, it's making art, not marketing.
Oh, that's perfect.
All right, that was Karen Schipper. If you want to go find her work, it's KarenSchipper.com. That's KarenSchipper.com. And you could find her the same thing on Instagram, except it's Karen.Schipper on Instagram. So you can check that out. Look at her, check out her cards, check out what she's doing, her wholesale page, her resources. Lots of cool stuff there. And with that, I'm going to take us out. SVS is the sponsor of this show, and the show is 3 Point Perspective. It's the podcast about illustration. And our hosts today are Will Terry, Lee White, Jake Parker. Again, Will Terry is on assignment. He couldn't join us, but he will be back next week. Don't you guys worry. Podcast produced by Daniel Tu. That's Daniel TU. Special thanks to our keeper of the curriculum over at SVSLearn, Austin Shirtliff, our show notes wrangler, Lily Howell, our chief operations officer, Lisa Fott, our illustrator, Annalise Black. And that is it for us today. Now you go draw something.